The sniper is 30 feet above Corporal Eddie Swanson when the bullet cuts through the air where his head was 2 seconds ago. Swanson hits the mud, his heart hammering against his ribs, and for the third time this morning, he understands why they call this place the Green Hell. The Japanese rifleman is invisible somewhere in the banyan tree's crown, and Eddie knows the next shot won't miss. Snipers don't. Then he hears Sergeant Mitchell's voice behind him, calm as Sunday dinner. "Don't move, Marine. I got him." The sound that follows isn't a rifle shot. It's something else entirely. Something that makes the jungle canopy explode into splinters and falling leaves, and one Japanese soldier who doesn't scream on the way down because he's already dead. Swanson will learn the weapon's name later. Right now, all he knows is that for the first time in 3 weeks on Guadalcanal, the American Marines have brought something the enemy snipers can't answer. Eddie Swanson is 21 years old, from Duluth, Minnesota, and he's been on Guadalcanal for 17 days. Before the war, he worked his father's fishing boat on Lake Superior. He joined the Marines because his kid brother wanted to enlist, and Eddie figured somebody needed to look after him. His brother made it through boot camp and got assigned to a different unit. Eddie hasn't seen him since San Diego. The 1st Marine Division hit the beaches on August 7, 1942, and at first it seemed almost easy. The Japanese garrison fled into the jungle, leaving behind half-eaten rice and still warm equipment. The Marines took Henderson Field without losing a man to enemy fire. Eddie remembers thinking they'd be home by Christmas. Then the snipers started. Gunnery Sergeant Frank Mitchell is 34, which makes him ancient by Marine standards. He was a Depression-era regular who joined up in '35 when factory work dried up in Pittsburgh. He's got a shooter's build, lean and compact, and hands that don't shake even when everything else does. The younger Marines call him the Sergeant, with the kind of respect that doesn't need a first name. He carries a Springfield rifle that's seen action since Nicaragua, and he cleans it twice a day whether he's fired it or not. Mitchell doesn't talk much about what he did before Guadalcanal, but everyone knows he trained as a scout sniper at Quantico. What they don't know yet is what he learned there, or what he brought with him to this godforsaken island. The jungle on Guadalcanal isn't like anything Eddie imagined. It's not the neat green forest of a nature magazine. It's a suffocating maze of vines and banyan trees, kunai grass taller than a man, and mud that sucks at your boots with every step. The humidity is something physical, a weight that presses on your chest and turns your dungarees into a second skin of sweat. Everything rots here: leather, canvas, skin. After a week, Eddie's rifle stock started growing mold. The Marines control Henderson Field and about 1,000 yards of perimeter around it. Everything else belongs to the Japanese, and mostly they own it at night. During the day, you can move if you're careful. During the day, you can die if you're not. The snipers change everything. They're not like American marksmen who take a shot and relocate. Japanese snipers tie themselves into treetops 30 or 40 feet up, sometimes for days. They carry rice balls and water, and they wait with a patience that's almost inhuman. They don't go for clean kills. They aim for the gut, the leg, the groin. Wounded Marines scream, and when the corpsmen come running with Red Cross armbands, the snipers shoot them too. Eddie's squad lost a man named Torres 3 days ago. Torres was taking a leak behind a palm tree when the bullet hit him in the lower back. He lived for 6 hours, screaming for his mother in Spanish and English both. The corpsmen who tried to reach him took a round through the shoulder. They both bled out before sunset because nobody else dared move in daylight. After that, the Marines stopped sleeping. You can hear it in the way they talk, sentences trailing off, hands trembling when they light cigarettes they're not supposed to smoke. Some units report their positions in whispers, even on the radio. Eddie catches himself holding his breath when he moves between foxholes, as if the snipers might hear him breathing. They talk about home during the quiet hours. Eddie writes letters to his brother that he knows probably won't get through. Mitchell reads a paperback Western so worn the pages are falling out. The same 5 pages over and over, because that's all he has left. A kid from Tennessee named Pruitt carries a photograph of a girl he swears he's going to marry, though everyone knows he's never actually asked her. The photograph is already water-stained and curling at the edges. What they're afraid of isn't dying. That's too abstract. They're afraid of dying slowly, gut-shot and helpless, while a sniper waits for the next target. They're afraid of the moment when you have to choose between helping a wounded friend and staying alive yourself. They're afraid the brass back at division headquarters doesn't understand what's happening out here in the jungle, that this is different from any war America has fought before. On August 24th, word filters down from battalion. A weapons specialist is coming up from the rear with something new. Nobody knows what it is, just that it's supposed to address the sniper problem. The Marines have heard that before. Division sent up extra riflemen 2 weeks ago, marksmen who were supposed to counter-snipe. The Japanese killed 3 of them the first day. Eddie is on water detail when Sergeant Mitchell comes back from the company CP with a long canvas case and an expression Eddie has never seen before. Something almost like satisfaction. Mitchell doesn't unwrap whatever's inside. He just sets it down carefully in his foxhole and tells the squad to get some sleep while they can. Tomorrow morning, Mitchell says, we're going hunting. Eddie doesn't sleep. None of them do. Somewhere in the darkness, beyond the perimeter, you can hear Japanese voices carrying on the night air, singing sometimes, or calling out in English, trying to make the Marines shoot and reveal their positions. Overhead, the coconut palms rustle in a breeze that doesn't reach the ground. Mosquitoes swarm in clouds that the repellent barely touches. At 06:30 on August 25th, everything changed. Eddie is eating cold hash from a can when Mitchell unwraps the canvas case and shows them what he brought from the rear. It's the ugliest weapon Eddie has ever seen. The Browning automatic rifle weighs 19 pounds, feeds from a 20-round magazine, and fires 36 cartridges at a rate of 550 rounds per minute. Mitchell hefts it like it weighs nothing, checking the action with movements so practiced they're automatic. Eddie has seen bars before. Every rifle squad is supposed to have one for suppressive fire. But he's never seen anyone carry one like this, almost tenderly, like a precision instrument instead of a bullet hose. Here's the thing about snipers, Mitchell says, his voice barely above a whisper. The squad leans in. They own the vertical. They're up high where we can't see them, where rifle fire can't reach effectively. They take their time because they know we can't touch them. He pats the bar. This changes the math. The plan is simple, which Eddie knows from experience means it's probably going to go wrong. Mitchell wants to draw fire, deliberately expose someone as bait, and use the muzzle flash to locate the sniper. Then he'll hit the entire tree with automatic fire. Not trying for a precision shot, but saturating the area with lead until the sniper either dies or falls or gives up his position trying to escape. It's not fair, Mitchell says, and he's smiling when he says it. That's the whole point. Eddie volunteers to be bait before he can think about it too hard. Mitchell shakes his head. You're too skinny, Swanson. Pruitt, you're up. That Marine Corps chow finally did you some good. Pruitt looks like he's going to vomit, but he nods. He's carrying the photograph in his breast pocket again. Eddie notices these things now, the small rituals that might be the last things a man does. They move out at 700, following a trail that parallels the perimeter through secondary jungle. The temperature is already 90 degrees and climbing. Sweat runs into Eddie's eyes, stinging. The bar makes a particular sound when Mitchell shifts it, metal on canvas, and Eddie finds himself matching his breathing to that rhythm. The sector they're checking was where Torres died. Battalion intel says there's at least one sniper operating in this area, possibly two. The trees here are huge, banyan and mahogany with canopies that blot out the sky. You could hide an entire platoon up there and never see them from the ground. Mitchell signals a halt. They're in a clearing maybe 30 yards across, kunai grass beaten down by previous patrols. On the far side, a massive banyan tree spreads its branches like an umbrella, secondary trunks dropping from the limbs to root in the ground below. It's perfect sniper terrain. "Pruitt," Mitchell says. "Walk across. Not fast, not slow. Natural pace. When I yell, you drop and don't move." Pruitt's face has gone the color of old paper, but his hands are steady when he checks his rifle sling. The photograph is definitely in his pocket. Eddie saw him touch it 3 times. Pruitt steps into the clearing. He makes it 15 yards before the world compresses into a single sound, the crack of an Arisaka rifle, flatter and sharper than an M1. Pruitt is already falling when Mitchell yells, "Down!" and Eddie sees the muzzle flash. Just a brief spark 40 feet up in the banyan's crown, visible for maybe half a second. Mitchell is moving before the echo fades. The bar comes up smooth, and he doesn't aim so much as point, like he's showing someone something across the street. Then he opens fire. The sound is nothing like a regular rifle. It's a sustained roar, a chainsaw made of gunfire. The bar bucks in Mitchell's hands, but he controls it, traversing the weapon across the banyan's upper branches in a horizontal sweep. Bark explodes. Leaves shred into confetti. Branches thick as a man's arm simply disintegrate under the impact of multiple .36 rounds, hitting within inches of each other. Eddie counts in his head. Mitchell burns through the first magazine in 4 seconds, ejects it without looking, slaps in a fresh one, and continues firing. He's not shooting at a man. He's destroying the sniper's entire world, erasing the platform and cover and concealment all at once. Something falls from the tree. Not clean, not quick. The body tumbles through branches, catches on a limb, hangs for a moment, then drops the final 20 feet to hit the ground with a sound Eddie will hear in nightmares. The Arisaka rifle follows a second later, stock broken, barrel bent. The silence afterward is deafening. Eddie's ears are ringing so hard he can barely hear Mitchell's order to check Pruitt. They sprint across the clearing, exposed, vulnerable, but Eddie doesn't care anymore, and find Pruitt lying in the grass with his eyes squeezed shut. "I'm hit," Pruitt gasps. "I'm hit. I know I'm hit." But he isn't. The bullet is buried in the ground, 6 inches from his left shoulder. Eddie can see where it cut through the grass beside Pruitt's head, so close it probably singed his hair. Pruitt opens his eyes, pats himself down frantically, and starts laughing. The sound is high and brittle, on the edge of hysteria. But Eddie is laughing too. Mitchell checks the sniper's body. The Japanese soldier is young, maybe 19, with a thin mustache and a leather belt with the chrysanthemum insignia. He's been hit at least 6 times. Chest, shoulder, both legs. The banyan tree above him looks like it went through a wood chipper. Mitchell doesn't search the body for souvenirs. He just takes the Arisaka's bolt and scope, rendering the rifle permanently useless, then signals to move out. "One down," Mitchell says. Word spreads through the division faster than official channels ever could. Sergeant Mitchell killed a sniper with a bar. Shot the whole damn tree to pieces. By that evening, every weapons platoon on Guadalcanal wants to know the technique. By the next morning, Mitchell is running unofficial classes, showing other Marines how to identify sniper trees, how to control the bar's climb in automatic fire, how to saturate an area with enough lead that precision doesn't matter anymore. The Japanese adapt, but slowly. For 3 weeks, Mitchell and his improvised counter-sniper team hunt the jungle around Henderson Field. They kill 7 confirmed snipers and probably twice that many who fall into undergrowth where the bodies can't be recovered. Other Marine units adopt the tactic. The bars start appearing in new roles, carried by designated anti-sniper gunners who move with the patrols. The cost is ammunition, tremendous amounts of it. Crates of 30 Euro 6 that logistics struggles to ship up from the rear. Mitchell's team can burn through 400 rounds in a single contact. Battalion quartermaster complains until Mitchell asks him how much a dead Marine costs. But it works. The snipers don't disappear, but they become cautious. They take fewer chances, shoot from shorter ranges, relocate after every shot instead of staying in position for hours. The psychological advantage shifts. Marines start moving in daylight without that constant clenching fear. Corpsmen stop dying at twice the rate of regular infantry. Eddie Swanson survives Guadalcanal. He'll fight through Tarawa and Saipan, carrying the lessons Mitchell taught him about staying low and moving fast and never, ever stopping in a place that looks like good cover. He makes sergeant himself before the war ends. But he never forgets that morning in August, when Pruitt walked across the clearing and Mitchell's bar tore a sniper's world apart in 4-second bursts. He never forgets that the weapon they called unfair was the first thing that made Guadalcanal's jungle feel like something you might survive. The official count says Mitchell's team killed 14 Japanese snipers confirmed, another 23 probable. Battalion starts calling them the Lumberjacks because of what they do to the jungle canopy. Mitchell hates the nickname, but it sticks anyway. Marines have a way of making jokes about things that scare them. Pruitt keeps the photograph, but stops looking at it. When Eddie asks why, Pruitt just shakes his head. "Don't want her to see what I'm thinking," he says. Which doesn't make sense until you've been under sniper fire for 3 weeks, and it makes perfect sense. 2 men in Mitchell's squad don't make it off Guadalcanal. A corporal named Hayes catches shrapnel from a naval bombardment. Friendly fire, though they don't call it that officially. A private named DeMarco contracts cerebral malaria and dies on the hospital ship before they can get enough quinine into him. Neither death has anything to do with snipers, which feels like some kind of cosmic joke. The physical exhaustion is total. By September, Eddie has lost 20 pounds he couldn't afford to lose. His hands shake when he tries to light cigarettes. He develops a twitch in his left eye that will take 6 months to fade. When division finally rotates them off the line, Eddie sleeps for 16 hours straight and wakes up thinking he's still in the jungle, still listening for the crack of an Arisaka rifle. Mitchell never talks about the snipers he killed. When replacement officers ask him to brief them on counter-sniper tactics, he does it in the same flat voice he uses for everything else. He doesn't mention the smell of cordite and blood, or the way bodies look when they've fallen 40 feet onto coral rocks, or the sound Pruitt made when he thought he was dying, but wasn't. The Marines start finding Japanese sniper hides after battles. Elaborate platforms built into tree forks, camouflaged with living branches, stocked with rice and water for multi-day positions. Some of the snipers were tied to their positions with rope, insurance they wouldn't fall even if wounded. Eddie sees one of these platforms after the fighting moves north, and he understands why Mitchell's tactic worked. You can't precision shoot what you can't see, but you can destroy the entire environment a sniper needs to operate. Intelligence reports later say the Japanese army trained their snipers specifically for jungle warfare, emphasizing patience and camouflage over quick shooting. They were professionals, many with years of experience in China. Mitchell's innovation wasn't better marksmanship, it was accepting that some tactical problems don't need precision. They need overwhelming, unfair, disproportionate force. The strategic significance takes time to emerge. Henderson Field remains operational because the Marines can defend it. They can defend it because they can move and work in daylight. They can move in daylight because the snipers stop being invincible ghosts and start being mortal men who can be killed by someone with enough ammunition and zero interest in fighting fair. By October, the Japanese Navy makes its last major attempt to retake Guadalcanal. They fail, in part because Henderson Field's Wildcat fighters and Dauntless dive bombers are operational and launching strikes. Those aircraft fly because ground crews can service them without being shot by invisible snipers. The chain of causation is long and complex, but Mitchell's ugly, unfair weapon is one link in it. Japanese accounts captured after the war describe confusion about American tactics. Their snipers reported being targeted not by other snipers, but by automatic fire from multiple positions. Some thought they were facing a new dedicated anti-sniper unit with specialized weapons. They weren't wrong exactly. They just never understood that the weapon wasn't new and the unit was whatever Marines happened to be carrying bars that day and knew Mitchell's method. The gap between official reports and ground truth is predictable. Division records note improved counter-sniper operations in September 1942. They don't mention that the improvement came from one sergeant who decided the way to fight snipers wasn't better precision, but better violence. They don't track the ammunition expenditure or note that logistics officers wanted to court-martial Mitchell for wasting ordnance until casualty rates started dropping. The lesson filters up slowly. Sometimes the answer to an asymmetric threat isn't to match the enemy's capabilities, but to change the terms of engagement so completely they can't adapt. The Japanese trained snipers to own the vertical dimension with patience and precision. Mitchell answered by making the vertical dimension uninhabitable for anyone who stayed still long enough to aim. War has a way of rewarding innovation that official doctrine never predicts. The Army's manual for jungle fighting didn't include destroy the enemy's entire environment with automatic weapons fire as a counter-sniper technique. Mitchell figured it out because he had to, because Marines were dying, and because he understood something fundamental. Superiority isn't about matching your enemy's strengths. It's about imposing your own. The human cost of Guadalcanal's sniper war gets buried in larger numbers. The campaign killed or wounded over 7,000 Americans, and official records don't break out how many died specifically to snipers. But anyone who was there remembers the psychological weight, the way every tree became a threat, every patch of shade a potential kill zone, every movement in daylight a risk calculation between necessity and suicide. Mitchell's innovation saved lives precisely because it was unfair. Snipers rely on invisibility and patience. The bar stripped away both advantages, not by outsniping them, but by making their positions untenable. You can't aim when your tree is being torn apart by automatic fire. You can't stay hidden when branches are exploding around you. You can't be patient when 20 rounds are impacting in 4 seconds, and you have maybe one of those seconds to decide whether to shoot or flee, or just die where you're tied. The tactics spread beyond Guadalcanal. By Tarawa in 1943, Marine doctrine officially included suppressive fire against suspected sniper positions using bars. By Saipan in 1944, designated anti-sniper teams carried extra ammunition and worked in coordination with advancing infantry. The Japanese continued to use tree-borne snipers. They were too effective to abandon. But they became more cautious, took fewer risks, achieved fewer kills per man. What this reveals about war itself is uncomfortable. Often the difference between victory and defeat isn't courage or discipline or even firepower in the abstract. It's whether someone, somewhere, figures out the actual problem and solves it with whatever tools exist, regardless of whether that's how the tools were supposed to be used. Mitchell didn't invent the bar or automatic fire or any new technology. He just asked a different question. What if we stop trying to shoot back with rifles and start destroying the platforms they shoot from? The lesson the official histories miss is how much warfare is improvisation by people who have no choice but to figure things out or die trying. Battalion didn't send Mitchell to solve the sniper problem. They sent him because he was available and had sniper training, and the brass were desperate. What he did with that opportunity was entirely his own innovation, born from watching Marines die and deciding there had to be a better way. Sergeant Frank Mitchell survived the war. He made it through Guadalcanal, Tarawa, and Saipan before taking a piece of shrapnel at Iwo Jima that sent him home with a Purple Heart and a permanent limp. He never talked much about what he did, not to reporters or historians or even mostly his family. When his son asked him once what he did in the war, Mitchell said he was a sergeant in the Marines. When pressed for details, he said he did his job, that was all. Eddie Swanson went back to Duluth after the war and ran his father's fishing boat on Lake Superior. He never saw his brother again. The kid made it through the war but moved to California afterward, and they lost touch the way families sometimes do. Eddie never told his wife about the morning Pruitt walked across the clearing or what the jungle sounded like when Mitchell opened fire. Some things you can't explain to people who weren't there. But on August 7th every year, the anniversary of landing on Guadalcanal, Eddie would take his boat out alone at dawn and sit in the quiet water while the sun came up. He'd think about Torres and Hayes and DeMarco, about Mitchell's steady hands and Pruitt's photograph and the sound a body makes falling 40 feet through a banyan tree. He'd remember what it felt like when the jungle stopped being a death trap and became just a place where you fought. And sometimes, if you were smart and lucky and had the right weapon at the right moment, you survived. The truth is simple and hard. War rewards people who solve problems, and sometimes the solution is violence so overwhelming and unfair that it changes what's possible. Mitchell's bar didn't win Guadalcanal, but it made winning possible by making the jungle survivable. And that's the kind of small, crucial difference that never makes it into the grand narrative, but matters more than almost anything else. To the people who were actually there, in the mud and heat and terror, trying to stay alive long enough to go home. That's what you learn from the story of Japanese snipers and one ugly automatic rifle. Fairness is a peacetime luxury. In combat, the weapon that works is the weapon that keeps your people alive. And if the enemy thinks it's unfair, that's the whole goddamn point.